come together right now over me. Boom, boom, dun, dun, dun. Boom, boom, dun, dun, dun. Hello, and welcome to the next exciting episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, Quarantine Edition, the podcast where Matt and Todd watch a top 100 Netflix film on the streaming service Netflix, and then we talk about it, we record it, we get all our emotions out on the table so that you, the people who we love, can listen and get your emotions out on the table. And then we can all sigh a sigh of relief. I am Todd.
And I'm Matt Malloy. And yes, welcome to this edition of Matt and Todd Movies. So I'll start with a word from our sponsor.
Sponsor.
Our sponsor is the Santa Fe Writers Project, or SFWP for short. SFWP is an independent publishing house that has been helping authors and books connect with the world for 22 years with a wide range of fiction and creative nonfiction. The founder, director, and friend to the podcast, Andrew Gifford, has offered 25% off to all of our listeners when you order direct through his website, sfwp.com. Just use the coupon code MOVIES when you check out. That's MOVIES as a coupon code for 25% off. Thank you, Santa Fe Writers Project, for helping make the magic happen here at Matt and Todd Go to the Movies. Everyone go support a small business and buy some books.
It just made me think of, I don't know if you're going to get this or not, but the critic, the John Lovitz cartoon show, when he wrote a book, he had a stand of himself, and if you push it, it'd just be like, buy my book. Buy my book.
Nice. That wasn't what I was going for, but I do know what you're talking about. So.
Well, it's completely possible that my mind is messed up, so you were probably on the right path, and I took a tangent.
Oh, no worries. So, news of the day. We are still in quarantine, technically. Our local drive-in movie theater is opening this weekend, but they're playing movies that we have already reviewed. So, we're not going to go to the drive-in in quarantine.
Yeah, I was confused by... So, Sonic I get, because that only came out a couple of weeks before lockdown and everything closed. But Jumanji 2 has been out for so long.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just easy for them to get a hold of and they still had the rights to it or something like that. But it was just like, I don't know. I feel like reopening for the theater could have been a bang, and you needed one movie to be the bang feature. And it was like, okay, Sonic. Then I was like, what's the bang? And it was like, Jumanji 2. And it's like, well, we've been there.
Yeah. So
in my humble opinion.
We will continue to monitor our options and see if we can ever go to the movies again.
Yeah, I'll just continue to sit in my seat of judgment over here about how other people run their business.
Excellent. I would hope for nothing less. All right. So, the movie we watched this time around, this episode, is called Inglourious Basterds. It is a movie from 2009, directed and written by Mr. Quentin Tarantino, a famous director, and Brad Pitt's in it, and other notorious people who I don't know, but I'm sure they're notorious. So what is Inglourious Basterds about? Well, it is set during World War II in Europe during the Nazi occupation of France. So I think the whole movie takes place in France. And basically, there's a bunch of different sort of factions. There's this group called the Inglourious Basterds who are like behind enemy lines, killing Nazis, and they're guys from... it's headed up by Brad Pitt. And those are the guys from the U.S. who are there to kill Nazis, and they like do crazy stuff like scalp every Nazi that they kill and ambush people, and they're generally causing. So they're looking for any opportunity to.
And they're Jewish.
And they're Jewish, yes.
Besides
Brad
Brad
Pitt
Pitt.
is not, but everyone else that he recruits is Jewish. So they're out to get some revenge on the Nazis for the treatment of Jews. Um, so you got that going on. So they're looking for an opportunity to stick it to the Nazis wherever they can. And then you've got this cinema owner whose family has been killed by Nazis, and she's secretly Jewish, but pretends to just be French with no Jewish blood. Um, and so at some point, she's told by the people in charge of the Nazis that this Nazi propaganda film is going to open at her theater. And in fact, the star of this film, who is a real life Nazi war hero, starts chatting her up and trying to get her to give him the time of day, which she does not want to. And then there's a Nazi guy who's sort of like, they call him the Jew hunter, and he's featured in the beginning. He's the person who causes this lady's family to be killed early on in the movie, and then she gets away. Anyway, so there's this sort of subtext throughout the whole thing that he's like made his career over the past however many years of like hunting down Jews. So all of this is coming to a head and coming to this premiere performance, which turns out that Hitler is going to be at, and a whole bunch of high-ranking people in the Nazi uh, leadership are going to be at this movie premiere at this woman's. Um, and so on two different fronts, the Inglourious Basterds group comes in and they find out about this. And they send in some spies and things like that, and they're going to blow up various parts of the theater. Independently, the woman who owns the theater is also, excuse me, also has this plan where she is going to burn down the theater, lock everyone in, and everyone will die. Um, and so that's the setup for this movie, and it comes to a dramatic conclusion, which I will not share what happens, but you can watch for yourself because we're spoiler free. So, Todd,
Well, we definitely
we
try
try
to
to be.
be. Unless things frustrate us and we have to talk about frogs falling down from the
Yeah,
sky.
we did have to do that. It's imperative. Anyway, what did you think of the movie?
Alright, I'm going to attempt to not take a half hour talking about this movie and Quentin Tarantino uh, himself. Because I feel I'm conflicted on there. Okay, so I'm gonna try to separate these two arguments. I'm conflicted on how much enjoyment I can get out of Quentin Tarantino movies because of the whole Harvey Weinstein thing, and Quentin Tarantino's a notorious jerk anyway, and he's been on record saying I knew Harvey was doing that stuff and I just didn't care, and he's had people get hurt in his movies because they're always doing dangerous stunts that he makes them do. Like, there's a woman in this movie who gets like strangled, and she was legit strangled in the scene and actually, lost conscious, and he was the one actually doing it. Like, those are his hands doing it. He's got a weird obsession with feet, and I find myself that all this compiling egotistical stuff that he is starts to block me from enjoyment from his movies, and so it makes it difficult. So I at least want to touch on that stuff. That I'm gonna at least put it out there to the world. That's something to think about when you watch his movies, I think.
Consider it touched on.
Yeah. Beyond that, there are really good performances in this movie. I can't tell if it's because it's like the third or fourth 2.5 hour plus movie that we've watched that I'm like really craving for a nice tight hour and 25 minutes or something like that. Is like really what I'm craving for right now. So Brad Pitt does a weird character that is like kind of unforgettable and people really love, and he's very entertaining. this movie introduced, at least me, I don't know how much he did before this movie, but it introduced me to Christoph Waltz, who's the main uh, Nazi guy, who I think gives an incredible performance. It's kooky, but it's also like really well done. Like he really nailed this role, and it may have been one of his first roles. I'm not sure, but he really nailed it, and was just really, honestly, an unforgettable performance for me. Um, and you have some other people. The guy who was Baron Zemo in the Avengers movie or Civil War movie plays the Frederick Zola, I think, guy who's the Nazi war hero. I don't know if you know this. Is that a guy who actually exists?
You mean in history? I don't
Yes.
think so. I've never heard of anything like that outside of this movie.
Okay. All right. Because I have a hard time. This movie blends what's real and actual in history with Tarantino's vision of how World War II could have ended. I don't know. It's just like it blurs the lines a little bit. So a ton of great performances. As much as I enjoy Brad Pitt's performance, I don't understand why his character wasn't also a Jewish guy to lead the Inglourious Basterds. Like a Jewish guy leading the Jewish guys. I don't know if that's because in that time where they're like, could you not raise above a certain rank if you were Jewish, or was that just he wanted Brad Pitt in this movie? I don't know.
I'm
Matt, do you
guessing
know?
he wanted Brad Pitt in the movie,
Okay,
but I don't really
so
know that. I'm just guessing that he likes Brad Pitt, as Brad Pitt has appeared in
sure.
several of his movies.
Yeah, I feel like this movie is the epitome of the new argument about Brad Pitt that when he's the leading man, his movies are like eh, but then when he's a side character, he knocks it out of the
Yeah,
park. Um, and so you just have all these. There's a lot going on story wise. You got the bastards. You got Nazi stuff. You got Shoshana is the woman who escapes and then has the movie theater. Her plot. There's just a lot going on, and it is pretty. Like I think it's well done, but it is very very gory at times. So if I know our famous friend Ed South does not like head
oh
trauma.
yeah.
There's a lot of head trauma in this movie, so I would warn him specifically against this movie. So, but yeah, I mean, there's nothing why people shouldn't see this movie. There's enough enjoyable parts in this movie to have a good time, and I know a couple people who like this is their favorite movie. So, I personally am conflicted about the whole Tarantino jerk thing movie enjoyment. But I will say if that stuff doesn't bother you, or if that stuff is you're like, okay, I separate the person from the art or whatever, then sure, watch this movie. Like if you can do that, then you will probably enjoy this movie. There's not too many minuses. That's actual movie based to me. So yeah, except for Brad Pitt not being Jewish. I just feel like the leader of the Bastards would have made sense to be Jewish, but that's just me.
Yeah.
He's continuously sniffing something in this movie, and it drives me nuts. He takes out a canister, and he puts it in his nose and he sniffs it, and I just don't know what it is. I can never figure out what it is, and it bothers me so much.
Uh,
And he has this weird scar around his neck too, and I want to know what that's about. And like, there's just so many unanswered questions for this one character.
Sounds like you need to write a letter to Quentin Tarantino and call
That's
him
true.
out on his jerkish nature and
Yes,
his obnoxiousness, and ask him these questions about Inglourious Basterds.
very true. I think you're onto something. If only we had a secretary that I could say, "Hey, give me Quentin Tarantino on the phone."
Right. One day, Todd. One day, we'll hit the big
One
time.
day we'll be that big. All right, Matt. What did you think about the film?
Okay.
Is this wasn't your first time viewing it, right?
So I didn't think it was. I know that I've seen at least one scene in the film before. The scene where the bastards are kind of interrogating some Nazis that they've captured in the woods, and they're trying to get info out of them. I know I've seen that scene before, but the rest of the movie really felt like brand new. Like I had no idea what was going to happen, and was pleasantly surprised. So uh, going into it, I thought I had seen it, but I don't think I had ever seen the whole thing. So
There
first
you go.
full viewing of the Inglourious Basterds movie, and I really liked it. Um, I'm gonna take the tack that I didn't have the Quentin Tarantino stuff on the top of my mind. I have heard some of that stuff before, but it wasn't prime in my thinking when I was watching. So it didn't really play into my gut enjoyment of the movie, at least this time around. Um,
You got to do
yeah,
you, Matt. I don't expect you to be anyone else
well,
but you.
thanks. I never will be. So, so yeah, I really liked it. I thought that the acting was really top notch, and the story was good. It was gory, but I think Quentin Tarantino movie that's sort of par for the course. You're gonna get
Sure.
some of that somewhere in the movie. Um, and I really like the killing Nazi parts. Like I don't really like Nazis, so that was like a big plus. Um, and that Hitler was in it too, and he seemed like really whiny dude, and uh, that made me happy. So overall, I really liked it. You've got a problem with head trauma, as we said, don't watch this movie. But
Yeah.
other than that, there's nothing crazy that you need to think about. If you're gonna decide to watch it or not. If you haven't seen it, it's worth a watch, I'd say. So yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, how many head carved swastikas would you give this movie,
Hmm.
Matt?
Well, in this case, a head carved swastika is going to be a good thing. So 5 head
Yes.
carved swastikas would be the best rating I could give. 0 would be the worst.
Yes.
So I'm going to
Absolutely.
give it a decently high rating. I think I think it's like a 3.8 head carved swastikas for me. Um, Solid movie, well put together, and and like you said, I didn't really there weren't really a lot of minuses. Um,
Yeah. To me, there really isn't like the only problem I have. I mean, the only real minus that I can really pull out is that I feel like you could almost point out to me almost every scene went a little too long. Like the movie is strung together with these really long
yeah,
scenes, and maybe some of them just went on a little too long. But then some of them are long and they're very enjoyable through the entire thing. So like, but I'm not a movie maker, so like, what can I say?
you can, yeah,
So I think, yeah, I think I'm gonna land. I'm gonna land on a
okay,
3, and really it's not higher because of my conflicting thoughts that I've shared a lot about. But besides the some scenes going longer than I think they needed to be. I mean, there's like just so much solid acting in this movie, and it is an engaging story. Like there's a weird Mike Myers performance in it. There's just like a little bit of something for everyone in this movie. So I'm landing on a 3.
okay, that's fair. So, well, that's gonna wrap up this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we reviewed the movie Glorious Bastards, and we gave it an average. The average of our two ratings was 3.4 head carved swastikas out of 5. And yes, so we already know the next movie that we're going to review. Still not back in theaters, so it's going to be another Netflix movie. It's going to be The Artist from 2011, which neither of us have seen. Best Picture winner,
Yeah.
Oscar.
Best picture winner,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it was, and typically I've seen all those, but uh, that was before I started that tradition. Haven't seen
Yeah.
it. So something to look forward to in our next episode. And with that,
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward
good.
to it because I've kind of always wanted to watch it and I just never have. So
Great. Well, with that, we will wrap things up and say thanks for listening. Please continue to listen and you can give us feedback on our Facebook page, which is called Matt and Todd Go to the Movies.
da da da
Da da da
da da
da
da
da da.
da.